Have you ever been so focused on something you wanted that you missed what was right in front of you? Hello, everyone, and welcome to Love Unexpected, a true story that will take you on a romantic journey that I promise will make you smile, sigh, and believe in the power of love. I'm your host, Tom Howie. This amazing story follows a young woman named Dawn Lawson, who had the experience of a lifetime. She traveled through Poland and Ukraine in 1992, shortly after they had become free from communist control. Her adventure is filled with unexpected turns, twists, and revelations sure to capture your heart and imagination. So let's dive into the story of how she found love that she never expected from across the sea. Thank you for joining us. Off we go. When we last talked to Dawn, we were talking about how you ended up in Poland. And if I remember correctly, a lot of different things had happened along the way to get you to where you were. But one of them was a prophecy that you received from someone who really saw into the future, as it would be. And in so doing, I notice that some people can make a mistake because they know too much about what's going to happen. And they start looking around knowing that this could be it, this could be it. But you didn't go at it that way, did you?
No, I didn't. As I said, it was like being shot through a tunnel and being finally at the end of the tunnel, knowing that this was going to happen. But I saw that as two totally different events. One would be going to Eastern Europe, the other being, and sometime, meeting your husband and getting married. I didn't see them as a combo pack.
But that was all meant to be in the same year, according to what this woman told you, correct?
Yes.
Very, very cool. So when we last left the story, you were in Poland, and as I remember correctly, you were ill-prepared to be there.
Ill-prepared is putting it lightly. First of all, I had never flown overseas, so I didn't even think about what it would be like to travel for 2 days, leaving on a Saturday and arriving someplace on a Sunday, getting no sleep, being up then for 2 complete days, having a 6-hour time difference. It knocked me out. And then on top of that, the weather was colder than I expected because this is mid-May, and in Maryland, it's shorts weather. But what I found out was that Poland is in the latitude in line with Canada. So it was still cold. And of course, we didn't have the weather app back then because we didn't have our personal phones. So I did not pack for cold weather. Also, the team was providing costumes for the dancers for the production part of it, and then also T-shirts and skirts for when we did our street ministry. And for some reason in my mind, I pictured that's all we were going to be wearing. So I didn't bring dance rehearsal clothes. I didn't have warm clothes. I had to borrow things from people. I was the scavenger, I guess, of the group, trying to stay warm. And then on top of that, I didn't know what our day was going to be like because I didn't have a schedule of the week.
So what I'm actually hearing is the Love Unexpected public service announcement. Folks, if you're going overseas, make sure you check your weather app. See what the weather's going to be there, pack correctly, and factor in jet lag.
Yes. So our first day, we woke up and we went to the kino. Remember, the kino was a Polish word for theater, and it was owned by a church. And we spent the day rehearsing and preparing for our evening ministry program, which was going to be our very first time ministering. And the dancers were rehearsing up on the stage. The musicians and the singers all went upstairs where we had dinner the night before, and it was right next to the kitchen. Now, just to clarify, just about a month before the trip, everyone received a cassette tape. Yes, I am dating myself now because this was 1992. Everyone received a cassette tape with songs that we're singing in English, in Polish, and in Russian so that they could learn before the trip how to sing these songs. We also got a VHS tape teaching Hebrew circle dances for those who were dancers. But I was one of 5 balletic dancers. Now, if you remember, there was 4 of us sharing a cabin, Teresa, Cindy, Trish, and me. And then there was a fifth woman who was there with her husband, Cher. So the five of us together had no choreography. We didn't have a VHS tape to learn anything from. So we started from scratch. And that day we started choreographing a dance to the song Make His Praise Glorious by Sandy Patty. And between the five of us, there were very different dance trainings, various levels of ability, of course, different ideas of what it should look like. And after 2 hours, we only had the opening of the song choreographed, which was about 40 seconds out of a 4.5-minute song. I was just mentally tired and a little frustrated and really glad when we were able to take a break to go to lunch so I could get outside, get some sunshine, walk through the town and just remember where I was and why I was there. We were in the little town called Rungova, and it's just a charming town. The architecture was from hundreds of years ago, which is something we don't see in the United States. Little cobblestone streets here and there. We walked past parks, and there was this large lake with swans on it. It was just so idyllic. And as we walked through the town, Trish and I liked to stop and look in all the shops. Yes, because we're women. So we liked to look in all the shops and look at what they had that was different than us. And I'll tell you, Tom, my very favorite thing that I learned that day was that disposable diapers are called poopers in Poland.
I don't think I'm going to touch that with a joke. That's crazy.
I wouldn't touch it either.
Poopers. So you had a little bit of time in the city or the town. You got to see that it was unlike where you came from, and also maybe some challenges that you didn't expect.
Yes. Well, when we went back to work some more on the dance, one thing that we didn't think about was water. Well, this was before bottles of water and before the flasks that we would use now to fill up with water. So the only way that we could get water, because dancers and doing all the physical activity, of course, we need to drink water a lot, was to go upstairs through the rehearsal of the musicians and into the kitchen, get a glass, and fill it up with water. So every time that I needed a drink of water, I would have to go upstairs, and it was so uncomfortable to walk through the rehearsal of musicians, but I would glance over, and there I saw Willie looking at me, and we would lock eyes, and it just kind of caused me to catch my breath. I tried to avoid going up there and asked others to get water for me after that. Because I just, Tom, I just didn't want this distraction. And I didn't want somewhere in my mind to think that somebody might be romantically interested in me on this 2-week trip. Besides that, honestly, I was trying to deny that I'd had that feeling, that strange jolt of electricity the night before when my hands touched Willie's. I was afraid of what that might mean. So we continued to rehearse, and around 2:30 in the afternoon, I noticed Anna. She was the little daughter of the pastor from the church that I'd met the night before. She was 7, and she came in and was just mesmerized watching the dancers rehearse. And then soon other little children started to come in and watch us. And we decided to take a break. And the 5 of us took the little kids out to the outdoors, and we began teaching them some of the Hebrew circle dances and some of the songs. And we were laughing and singing and dancing. It was incredible. I think we counted 14 kids there, and my heart was just full. This is the reason why I'd come on the trip.
That is awesome. And that's like another signpost along the way, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I just love to share God's love with people. I love watching people experience that incredible freedom and that joy that God's presence brings.
So So you had a little signpost here, basically giving you, this is why you're here. Mm-hmm. That morning, the most you could actually achieve in your practice was 40 seconds of a 4.5-minute song.
Yes.
But you went out, you spent some time with the kids, you got to play with them and dance with them and teach them something. Mm-hmm. And then you go back in for tonight's performance.
Yes. Well, it was, yes. And this is our very first ministry program that we did while we were there. And since we didn't have our dance, what we call performance ready, we only did the opening 40 seconds of the song on stage, and then we dramatically ran off to the sides. And then the singer came out and she sang the song. So Trish and I were able to sneak around to the back of the theater and find some seats to watch the whole program because we hadn't been on the tour before. So this allowed us to see the program in its entirety. There we were able to hear the singers and musicians do the songs in English and in Polish. We were able to watch the Hebrew circle dancers do their dance. And then there was a pastor that spoke and it was translated into Polish and he just shared about God's love. It was just a really powerful program. And what made the evening even more exciting was that near the theater was a Polish military base. And the base commander allowed about 200 of the soldiers to come march over to the Kino and attend the program. So they were all sitting there in the audience ahead of us. And at the end of the program, there was an invitation for anyone that wanted to receive the love of Jesus and prayer. And Tom, about 150 of those soldiers came forward. They prayed, and when the band began to play music, the soldiers began to spontaneously sing, and they were dancing in circles all around inside that theater.
That's amazing.
And afterwards, as soldiers do, they just fell into their units, and they waved, and they smiled, and they marched back to the military base. But I was so grateful that God was allowing me to be a part of this. It was just amazing.
So it sounds like you had an amazing first performance. Your portion actually, unfortunately, quite short.
40 seconds and we're off, yes.
But one great signpost is you got to be in the audience and actually experience why you were there.
Absolutely.
Isn't that amazing?
It is. It's the best feeling. So after that, of course, it was dinner time. So the dancers changed and we walked to town again to have dinner there. Little Anna, the pastor's daughter, ran up and held my hand all the way. And Tom, once again, I'm wearing a short sleeve shirt and a cardigan sweater, and it is cold, very cold. I was shivering. My teeth were chattering. Everyone's laughing at me because of the chattering teeth. And Willie walked up next to me and he commented on my teeth chattering and being cold. And so I had to share my dilemma. You know, I didn't pack for this. I didn't realize it was going to be so cold. And he was really kind to volunteer to share some of his clothes with me. I didn't think they'd fit because I was 5'5" and 110 pounds as a dancer. But I said, okay, thank you. And
I gather Willie was not 5'5" and 110 pounds?
No, he wasn't. So we all got on the bus and headed back to the campsite. We're staying in those little A-frame cabins. And before getting off of the bus, the leader of our tour, Lindsay, said, I have an important announcement. I have to do his voice.
Okay.
It's a very cold night, so men, I want you to go into the women's cabin and light their fires. That's a response we all just laughed so hard because he tried to correct himself. That wasn't what he meant. And he said, what I mean is that, guys, you're going to have to work really hard to light their fire because their wood is wet. So we were laughing so hard, he just gave up. He was like, I can't win here.
In the business, they call that grabbing the golden shovel and just continuing to dig. So that's great. Well done, Lindsay.
So Willie, of course, came to our cabin, And he got our fire going.
Oh, okay. All right.
And then I went with him to his cabin so I could borrow some of his clothes. So he was offering me jeans. Yes, he was more than 110 pounds and 5'5", which I said, thank you, I don't think they'll fit. But he did have a sweatshirt and a sweater that I could layer, which was really nice. So after I borrowed those, we just sat down in front of his fireplace because he'd gotten his fire going.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a G-rated show, so you can continue to listen without any problem.
But at that time, he began to tell me about his life in Poland and things about his country that I'd never really heard. I think I was just so focused on Ukraine that I hadn't even thought about the other countries that had been part of what they called the Iron Curtain.
Well, Dawn, I mean, I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't know if you were taught the same way I was, but I remember the first time I visited Eastern Europe, and it's like basically we were somewhat taught, here's the Iron Curtain. Those people are bad. And
Yes.
and Western Europe, those people are good.
Yes.
And now we found, as we've gotten older, that that's not the case at all.
No, Eastern Europeans are not the villains of James Bond. That's how I was raised. We're the villains. So, yes, I didn't know a lot about them. And so this is where I began to find out some things about Poland and the Polish people. One thing that Willie shared was that he was a part of the first full-time Christian band in Poland.
Wow.
And that they had recorded 8 albums, and he'd recently been healed from cancer. He told me that he'd been playing keys for this same tour group the year before, while he was in the middle of, I guess it was 6 months of chemo, and that when he was on the tour the year before, he'd had no hair. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's why everyone was rubbing your head at the airport.
That makes sense,
the day
absolutely.
Before, yes, and now he has little curly hair. Another thing I found out was that when he was a student in the music conservatory, it's the Chopin Conservatory in Warsaw, that the Soviets called for martial law to shut down the country, basically, because the country wanted to move towards democracy, and they wanted to squelch that. So they told everyone, all of the students, you all have to go back to your hometowns. And he chose not to. And he was caught and put in jail just for not returning to his hometown.
Wow. And I know this is not meant to be a history lesson, but if my memory serves, the solidarity movement in Poland amongst the unions and Pope John Paul II really had a significant part of shutting down communism, not only in Poland, but in the entire Eastern Bloc. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. They kind of opened the door and made the way.
Amazing.
Also, he said that before communists or socialism did fall, he would have to stand in line for 6 to 7 hours at a store just to get the food he needed. Could you imagine how much time that would take out of your day? And sometimes he'd get into the store, he said, and what he needed wouldn't be there.
Wow. The only thing I can even think is possible was us during COVID trying to get toilet paper.
That's true. And then he began to tell me a little bit deeper history about Poland, that during World War II, many Polish people were captured and forced into Germany to work as slaves in hard labor jobs. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
That was not in my history books. And that his father was actually one that was taken as a teenager by the Nazis and taken to Germany and forced to work on a German farm.
Wow.
While he was there, he said that his dad, as a teenager, worked alongside this older Ukrainian woman who'd also been forced there. And she was a Christian, and she began to pray for him every day. And it wore him down. And after a while, he gave his life to God. And the two of them would read the Bible together, and they would pray. And just because of that, Tom, they were beaten by the Nazi guards day after day, but they chose to fight against it.
Wow.
And they kept their Polish identity. I mean, my heart was just flooded with compassion for these people. It was a total change in the way that I thought about this country.
And if memory serves me correctly again, you were more focused on going to Ukraine.
Absolutely.
And you'd spent more time with that whole notion. And now you're learning that part of your purpose is to be in Poland for certain.
Yes. And of course, earlier that day with the children showed me, and with the military base showed me, yes, this is part of what you're supposed to be doing. So I did return back to my cabin and was kind of shocked because it's late night now, and I couldn't turn on the lights. The electricity was off, and found out that there was a Polish guy that was working there to fix the electricity. And Tom, I guess I should have been a little bit more suspicious because he kept looking at Teresa, who was a tall, beautiful blonde. And we didn't know, though, that what was going on in his mind. We just thought he was there helping with the electricity. I don't think we ever would have dreamed that he was starting to plan something that would jeopardize us girls in just the next few days. But he finally fixed it. We were definitely all felt the effects of jet lag. It was a long day. It was a cold night, and it was probably 2:00 in the morning when we finally crawled into our beds. I have to say that I fell asleep that night reflecting on what Willie had told me about Poland. Like you said, until this day, I'd honestly considered Poland just kind of a stopover on our way to Ukraine. But now I wanted to know more about this country and these resilient people. I felt like Willie had more stories to share, and I wanted to sit by him and listen to them all.
Well, that wraps up this episode of Love Unexpected. Please join us next week for our next episode. To see photos and video clips that go along with this episode, go to our website, loveunexpected.us. You can also find a link to our website in our episode guide. We'd love to hear from you, so email us your comments and questions about this episode to our webpage. Again, loveunexpected.us. If you enjoyed the show, we'd love for you to share our podcast with your family and friends. You can listen to Love Unexpected on your favorite podcast platforms. We invite you to follow our social media at Love Unexpected Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. We look forward to connecting with you. Our producer for this show and creator of original music is Joe EP Music. Our host, Tom Howie. Our writer is Dawn Pruszkowski.